you stated that you're not a policy person, but I would still ask you a policy question, which is, if you were going to design a census series of questions, I mean, I understand you'd want to ask, are you a citizen? Would you also advocate for asking for, if you're a legal immigrant, under what status is that legal position, say a green card or a visa or whatever the case may be? And then from beyond that, the omissions on that status, if you're not legal, would be then an illegal. Would you advocate for collecting all that data so we know who's here and why?
The simple answer is yes. You know, for us, in the claim that we have here, and from a policy perspective, not only will we want to know your citizenship, but also whether or not, if you're here illegally, have you overstayed your welcome, in essence, the status you were granted, or have you ever been granted status in the first place? And by having that information, it would allow us to do an appropriate apportionment of those congressional representatives in the Electoral College.
What I'm hearing in some of the statements made up here in this panel, discussion about semantics rather than policy. And I would advocate what you've described is the policy we need to get to, regardless of how the semantics are argued out here. And I would point out a statement made by Ninth Circuit Judge John Noonan, 1985, when he said this: if there was an invading army on American soil, one does not suppose the Bureau of Census would count the enemy troops, close quote. Any comments on that, General?
No, again, other than as somebody who has spent a career enforcing the law, I believe that we have that responsibility across our country.
And I'd turn to Dr. Camerata for his comment because I saw his facial expression.
Yes, that would seem to not, you know, I'm not a constitutional lawyer, but it does seem to violate the spirit of sort of the Constitution to count an invading army, that's for sure. But under the current rules, if they were residing in that was their usual place of residence of occupation, I guess they would have to attempt to be counted.
We'd have to draw a distinction between an invading army and an unarmed invading group of illegal aliens. My time has expired, but I want to give deference to Dr. Murdoch, who waved his hand. I don't expect the ranking member will object.
The thing here that's important to understand from the standpoint of the Census Bureau is the Census Bureau does very careful work. It tests things to ensure that they, in fact, responded to in ways that are logical and which reflect their status. That means citizen status in a variety of ways. I think what sent many of us that signed that letter that you saw, the 6 of us, was that we really haven't had the time, or haven't taken the time, I won't fight over that, to evaluate these questions the way we evaluate every question. Not just these questions, but other questions on other elements that are involved. And so what the census has been asking for or suggesting is that if we want the same accuracy with those kind of questions that we have with others, we need to allow the testing and other procedures to be performed with the census.
Thank you,
These
Dr.
have come
Murdoch.
late in the process.
Appreciate that, and the chair would now recognize the ranking member, Mr. Cohen.